What's going on YouTube? So when Ford redesigned the Explorer last year, they went all in, offering more versions than ever before. This is one of those new versions, the brand new Ford Explorer Hybrid. And what we're gonna do in this review is basically compare it to the standard gas engine and also see how it stacks up against the Highlander Hybrid. So getting started here with the exterior design. The thing to know about the Explorer Hybrid is that it comes in limited trim only. Additionally, Ford does almost nothing to distinguish the hybrid from the gas-powered model, so you're not gonna notice any types of weird fascias or badges. That being said, that means since it is the same as the gas-powered model, on the limited trim you get this silver grille with the kind of mesh texture in the middle. You also have fully LED headlights, both the low and high beam, as well as the turn signal. And then down below here, you have an LED fog light. And jumping down here to the wheels, honestly, this is the closest thing we're gonna get to a difference for the hybrid model. And that's because the hybrid comes standard with the optional wheels from the limited gas-powered model. They are still 20 inches, but they have a slightly different design. And then as far as your mirrors, you do have black mirror caps. You do also have heating, power folding, and blind spot monitoring.
So walking around to the rear design, just like Drew said in the front, there's really nothing different for this Explorer Hybrid besides for this. This right here, this is your only distinction really on the outside, is that you have this tiny little black hybrid badge on the back. But other than that, you do have some silver trim right here, as well as partially LED taillights. The reverse light and the turn signal are still halogen. And then down here at the bottom, you do still have dual exhaust, even though this is the hybrid model. And since Copilot 360 is now standard across the entire Explorer lineup, that does mean that it's going to be on this Explorer Hybrid as well. So we'll have automatic emergency braking with pedestrian detection, lane keeping assist, auto high beam headlights, as well as adaptive cruise control with evasive steering assist. Well guys, that sums up the very minor changes to this Explorer Hybrid on the outside. So now let's go ahead and hop inside before we take it out on a spin.
So on the hybrid, since this is the limited, of course you do have Ford's intelligent entry system as well as remote start. And then to get inside the vehicle itself, just put your hand behind the sensor, and when you do, the mirrors will also fold out. And taking a look inside of this cabin, just like with the outside, you will see that the hybrid does not really have any differences from the regular limited Explorer. So with that in mind, that does mean you have standard leather seating and you have your choice between ebony or sandstone color options. And then turning over here to your door trim, it is very nicely finished. Most of it is covered in leatherette with a nice color contrast stitching detail, and the top part is soft touch. You will find 3-person memory seating on this limited model, and your windows are one-touch automatic. Now coming down here to your seats, this is the 10-way power adjusting seat with 2-way lumbar support. And then like I was already mentioning, this is the standard leather seat. As you can see, it's got a pretty nice and attractive stitching design and some color contrast stitching. So just like the Explorer we showed you guys last year, since this is also the limited trim level, the materials are going to be exactly the same. So across your upper dashboard, that's going to be a soft touch plastic. Dropping down here to the middle, we have some faux wood trim. And then along our lower areas, this is all hard touch plastic. We do have some silver trim through the middle, and everything does fit together nice and solidly. Then right up here you have your standard push button start. And that right there is where you start to notice the hybrid difference, because we are booted up here, but obviously the engine is not running. Now, as far as the gauges themselves, they pretty much look the same, but you do have an additional little button there, or excuse me, symbol that says ready. You also have some additional hybrid menus right here, so this is telling you where your energy is flowing, and also kind of coaches you on how to drive the most efficiently. And coming back to the steering wheel, this is the brand new Ford Explorer design. Has a nice thick rim. It definitely feels nice in the hand. As far as adjustment, it is power adjusting here on the Limited, and it is also heated. Now, hybrid or not, interior storage is definitely very important for a family crossover, so let's go ahead and check that out. Starting out with our center console here. It looks kind of small right off the bat, but actually if we remove that, you'll see that it is quite large. Definitely very deep, and there is a felt lining at the bottom of it and a 12-volt outlet. And when we get our coupons out, we can lay them in there very easily and shut the lid without even folding them. Now, in front of that, you actually have a wireless phone charger, so you kind of just set your phone vertically like that. We have two large cup holders. You can also hit that, and you'll notice another really nice and large bin. It is quite deep with another rubber lining, 12-volt outlet, and two USB ports. Now, one of the things that Ford did save some space on was going with this electronic shifter. This, of course, is this very similar to what we find in the Ford Expedition, so you just twist for drive. You can push the M here if you want to shift manually. And we actually have some paddle shifters on board. And then heading into reverse, we do have a standard 360-degree camera system. And as you can see, you can also change to some different views as well. And of course, you have parking sensors on the front and the rear. And then right behind that, we have our electronic parking brake and our brake hold function, as well as our drive modes. Some of them are reduced though because of this being the hybrid. Now moving on up here, we have 3-zone automatic climate control with the same simple controls as the regular Explorer. You will also find 3-stage heated seats as standard equipment, as well as 3-stage ventilation. And now we will go ahead and sample the audio system. Of course, being based on the Limited trim level, we have the 12-speaker Bang & Olufsen sound system. The overall sound quality of this system is excellent. And one thing I am noticing I did fail to mention earlier, but we do also have another little storage shelf right here underneath of the display. Definitely looks like the right size for maybe a cell phone or something like that. Alright, so now we are here at the display. This is the 8-inch display. If you know from the gas-powered Explorer review, this comes on pretty much every single trim level, including the Limited. So you cannot actually get that vertical 10.1-inch display on the hybrid model, since that's exclusive to just the ST and the Platinum. Nevertheless, this is the newest Sync 3 system. It does have all that typical functionality, including built-in navigation, as well as Android Auto and Apple CarPlay abilities. Now moving on up from there, we have an auto-dimming mirror. We also have our HomeLink universal remotes mounted right here on the visor. And then turning around here, you're actually not going to notice we have a moonroof. That's because we did not select the $1,695 panoramic moonroof option. Obviously that is available if you want that.
Now, of course, with any 3-row SUV, the rear seat is definitely a very important part, and I have to say that with this Explorer Hybrid, since it is standard in the limited configuration, it is a very, very nice rear seat. So starting out with your feature set, here in the center, you're going to have your own climate controls as well as your different zone buttons. And then in addition to that, you do also have a standard 2-stage heated rear seats in the back, as well as a USB Type-C and smart charging USB and a regular household style outlet. And then down below that, you do have a little storage cubby. So certainly a lot of connections. And then here in the center, we do have cup holders in the middle. And then you're probably noticing that this particular model does have the captain's chairs, and that's because that is going to be standard on the limited trim. And then we have our vents up top, as well as some LED lighting. And then as far as the dimensions are concerned back here, we are going to have a very good amount of space back here. So we have 39 inches of rear legroom and 41 inches of rear headroom, which does place it a little bit behind the Toyota Highlander hybrid. But behind rear seating position, I still have probably 6 inches of rear legroom, and my feet can easily slide up underneath the seat. So certainly very comfortable back here. Now, I did forget to mention that we do also have rear window sunshades on this limited model. And then turning to getting into the 3rd row, Ford has made it quite easy. All I have to do is locate this little button right here, just tap it, and it will slide the seat and fold it out of the way. And getting back here, I have to say this is a pretty good 3rd row. I remember it being very nice in the regular Explorer, and that's something worth noting, is that even with this hybrid Explorer, there's not really any sacrifices in terms of space or anything, since you still have 32 inches of rear legroom and 39 inches of rear headroom. So with the seat scooted all the way back, I still actually have a little bit of legroom. My feet can slide up underneath the seat, and there are a few amenities. We have vents as well as cup holders on each side. Now, walking up to the tailgate, Ford does throw in a standard hands-free power one on this hybrid, so just wave your foot under the bumper to open. And once inside, this is going to be another impressive area for this Explorer Hybrid, since no space is sacrificed over the regular Explorer model, since the batteries are up under the 2nd row seats. So you're going to come in at 18 cubic feet behind the 3rd row seats. That expands to 48 cubic feet. And then if you fold all of the seats, it goes to a maximum of 88 cubic feet, which does actually best the Toyota Highlander. And as far as how it's finished back here, we do have a nice carpeting on the floor, a little bit of underfloor storage, and then Ford does also throw in a 12-volt power outlet, as well as the ability to power fold the 3rd row. So that's certainly a nice touch standard here on the hybrid model. Now, your passenger seat is going to be power adjusting on this limited. And looking in the glove box, it's actually very deep. It's not super wide, but it certainly is enough space for us to throw our Burger King coupons in there. And up top, we do have a sun visor with a mirror and LED lighting, and it does also detach as well as extend.
Alright, so we are first taking off here in the Hybrid Explorer, and we are in the electric mode, so it's, you know, nice and quiet. Now the battery is a little bit depleted at this point, but earlier, just a few minutes ago, we actually were up to 20-ish miles per hour in the EV mode, so that's definitely pretty nice that it can stay in electric mode for quite a while. And it does actually also give you like little tips, right? We have the braking coach is telling you how much energy you're recapturing. Also, you have this little bracket in the display here is telling you or showing you how much throttle application before it switches to gas. So I do like that, so you can kind of consciously try to keep it there. See, and we are staying in the EV mode right now. So that's pretty cool. Now, when you get on the throttle real hard, of course, you're not going to be in electric mode for long. But I have to say, really surprised by how quick it feels.
Yeah.
You know, when you think of hybrid, you usually think that you're sacrificing a lot of power, but that's really not actually the case with the Explorer Hybrid. It's kind of has a unique approach, especially compared to its biggest rival, which would be the Highlander Hybrid.
Yeah.
So with this, Ford, the standard model comes with a turbo 4-cylinder. Oddly enough, the hybrid model actually has a V6 engine.
Yeah.
So we start with the foundation of a 3.3 liter V6 engine. We add in the electric componentry, a small lithium-ion battery pack, and then altogether we're making 318 horsepower. So that's definitely very strong power numbers for this category of vehicle.
Certainly more than stuff like the Highlander Hybrid. So like Drew was mentioning, this is kind of more of a performance-oriented hybrid, if that makes sense, as opposed to like maximum efficiency. And, I'm noticing right there off the bat, that this is actually a pretty smooth hybrid setup, like the handoff between gasoline and electric power. Like Drew was saying, pretty much every time you start braking, the engine turns off, and I certainly can't feel when the engine turns off.
Mm-hmm.
And when it turns back on, like after a red light, if you take off a little fast, it will turn back on. It's very minimal, the amount of intrusion into the cabin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say it's good like 90% of the time. And then there's, if there's really an abrupt change in your throttle application, you can feel a little bit of a hesitation, but it's really not anything that the average person is going to notice just driving around the city per se. Now, if you're paying attention, you'll notice one of the other things that makes this a really uncharacteristic hybrid system, and that's that it actually has a regular transmission. It has a 10-speed automatic, just like the all the other versions of the Explorer. So, once again, really different setup from the Highlander Hybrid. But I have to say, I appreciate it. A lot of people are kind of turned off by continuously variable transmissions, and I have to say that having the 10-speed automatic definitely feels a lot more natural.
Yeah.
I like it better. This is a really good and responsive transmission as well. So I do think that that's definitely a plus for this Explorer Hybrid.
Yeah, and while we're talking about that, we might as well go ahead and discuss today's big airball and slam dunk. And we both talked about this off camera, is that we just think that this vehicle's driving dynamics is going to be its slam dunk because, it really does do a really good job. I mean, it's more powerful than the regular Explorer. Like he was mentioning, the transmissions there. It's just a lot more pleasurable of a driving experience than like a Highlander Hybrid. So that's definitely the slam dunk for this vehicle. And then the airball it's kind of like a two-handed approach. We will talk about this in just a second, but it's really not the most efficient. So even though this is a hybrid, that's also its airball, is that it really doesn't do all of the hybrid-y things of being most efficient really nearly as well as stuff like the Toyota Highlander. So it's kind of pick your poison, really.
Right. And going along with the driving dynamics, you really have good handling. Just the same characteristics from the gas-powered models do carry over for the hybrid, and this is a sportier driving vehicle. Of course, this is rear drive, where most of this vehicle's competition is going to be front-wheel drive, and you can tell the difference. The steering is not like a sports car or anything. Like if you want that, go for the ST still, but as far as the chassis, really feels nice and balanced. The rear drive platform, this is really a good setup, and it just feels uncharacteristic again of a hybrid SUV.
And going along with that, rear drive is going to be standard, of course, with optional four-wheel drive on this hybrid model. And you know, just getting up to speed there, of course this is a 3-row crossover, so its biggest priority is really to be a family hauler, family cruiser, and I have to say that this hybrid definitely doesn't impede on, you know, what the Explorer has already, you know, figured out how to do well, and that's really just be comfortable. As we just drive down the road here, I have to say you have a really good ride quality. I'm not hearing a lot of noise entering into the cabin. I will get a sound level meter reading, although this road that we're on right now is concrete, so it's going to be a little bit louder than the average road surface, but we'll see. Well, I guess that goes to show you, we're looking at 57 decibels going 57 miles an hour on a concrete road surface. So that's definitely very, very class competitive, if not better than most in the class. And finally, we do need to talk about the fuel economy. This is a hybrid after all. And I kind of alluded to this earlier. This Explorer hybrid really, it's not horrible fuel economy, but it's definitely not as good as some of its competition like the Highlander hybrid. So for the rear wheel drive model, it's going to come in at 27 city, 28 highway, 29 highway, 28 combined. And then the all-wheel drive is 23 city, 26 highway, 25 combined. So certainly not as good as the Highlander, which I think comes in at 36 miles a gallon combined. But it is still 4 mpg better than the 2.3 liter engine, so you are benefiting there. It's just not nearly as good as the Highlander hybrid.
Right, and that pretty much is the, you know, conclusion or the big takeaway of this Explorer hybrid, is that you need to know about kind of a different mindset with this. With the Highlander hybrid, which, like we said, is basically the only thing you can point to as competition, you know, Toyota's emphasis was maximum efficiency. Ford's emphasis with this Explorer hybrid, I think, is making the hybrid as normal and everyday livable as the regular model. Yeah. So you really don't even know that much of a difference when you're behind the wheel. Like, there's not anything that's particularly noticeable. You also don't lose any capability as far as cargo capacity. You can tow just as much with this as you can with the regular model, which is something the Highlander can't say, and you have that 10-speed automatic transmission.
Alrighty, so now let's go ahead and discuss the pricing for this hybrid Explorer. So it is only available in the limited trim, so it's going to start at $52,280 for the rear wheel drive model, which is worth knowing that's over a $4,000 increase as compared to the regular gas powered model. Now, as far as how this one is equipped, we do have the optional 4-wheel drive system, as well as floor liners for $120, crossbars for $325, a trailer tow package for $710, a cargo mat for $100, and then when you add the destination charge of $1,195, this particular model, as equipped, comes in at a pretty steep $56,925, which I have to say that's a very steep price point, especially, you know, it really tops a lot of the competitors like the Highlander Platinum. You know, it's quite a bit more expensive than that, and you are still missing features like a moonroof, stuff like that. So I would expect, hopefully, that maybe this Explorer would be discounted off of that price, but definitely a steep price point for this Explorer hybrid.
Well guys, we've enjoyed watching this in-depth look at the all-new 2020 Ford Explorer Hybrid. We really appreciate you watching, and if you made it this far in the video, hopefully that means you enjoyed at least a little bit, so be sure to hit that subscribe button down below, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.